NXT UK returns to Blackpool, England for NXT UK Takeover Blackpool 2. Jordan Devlin clashes with Tyler Bate. A four-way ladder match is on tap for the NXT UK Tag Team Championship, and Walter defends the NXT UK Championship against Joe Coffey. Let's head into the Pro Wrestling Control Center and review NXT UK Takeover Blackpool 2. Let's break it down right now on JtoZ TV. Alright guys, welcome once again to another edition of the JtoZ TV Pro Wrestling Breakdown. I am your host, JtoZ TV Dad, and it is January 12th, 2020, and it's time to review NXT UK Takeover Blackpool 2. Let's jump right into the main card, guys. Opening things up, it's Trent 7 going one-on-one with Eddie Denny, or Eddie Dennis, one of the two. Alright, I'm going to say Dennis, so we're going to go Eddie Dennis, because Eddie Denny sounds really strange, so Eddie Dennis gets literally no reaction, though, from the crowd here. They don't even go mild. That mild would be an overstatement, so immediately Dennis tries to hit a running Yakuza kick, but Seven ducks that and just one-arm power bombs Dennis right down. Dennis is going to come back with a big Splash Mountain Crucifix bomb, and then he takes over. Snapdragon connects, though, and Trent 7 comes back, and he follows him out to the floor with a Tope Suicida. Kudos to you, Excalibur, for that one. And then Trent 7's going to follow it right up with a second Snapdragon right there on the floor. Back inside, Trent 7 misses a corkscrew, plancha, a moonsault, something. It was a corkscrew dive. And Dennis is back in control. But Trent's going to end up coming back with a beautiful Emerald Frozen. That only gets 2. Dennis wants to cheat, though, and he's going to remove the turnbuckle pad. But he gets crotched up top. And Trent 7 brings him back down with a big superplex. Trent 7 goes for the 7-star lariat. That's blocked, and Trent ends up hitting the exposed metal turnbuckle in the corner. And now Dennis wants to do the crucifix bomb into that exposed steel in the corner, but the ref steps in the way. He's not going to allow it. So Eddie Dennis just tosses 7 right to the floor, right on top of a crew member. Like a cameraman or a cord puller. Holy crap. What an insane spot that was. What a bump by Trent 7. Back inside, Dennis covers, but that only gets 2. So a neck stomp driver is going to finish Trent 7 off to absolute crickets, guys. Dennis isn't very good in the ring at all. He really struggles in the transitions, and Trent 7 actually had a hard time getting anything good out of Eddie Dennis here. Other than that big bump at the end, this did nothing for me. I'm going to say 2 3/4 of the star for the bump. It went 8 minutes, but that 2 3/4 that's even a little generous, but we're going to move on before I second guess my rating there, because next up it's a triple threat match for the NXT UK Women's title. Kaylee Ray is defending the championship against Piper Niven and Toni Storm. 3-way action coming at you right now. Toni is going to end up jumping Kaylee Ray to start, but Piper Niven goes after Toni and takes her off. Toni slips out, though, and goes back out to the floor for Kaylee Ray. So Piper Niven just decides to dive right onto Kaylee Ray instead. Toni and Kaylee Ray brawl, so Niven just hits a back senton right onto Toni Storm's back. Toni Storm is going to attempt Storm Zero on Kaylee Ray here, but Niven hits Toni with a big cross body block, and then Kaylee Ray is going to put Niven down with a super kick. Tornado DDT connects on Toni Storm from Kaylee Ray. And then Toni hits Niven with an absolutely terrible German suplex, assisted by a Kaylee Ray super kick. It just looks really awful, guys. A really contrived looking spot. Idea was there. Execution was not so much. Piper Niven hits Kaylee Ray with a Saito suplex. I love that move. And then Kaylee Ray is going to grab a steel chair, and she just chokes Toni Storm and Piper Niven with it. She puts it over Toni Storm's neck. She's going to Pillmanize her. But of course, you guys, if you watch pro wrestling, Other than that one time that Kane did it to Shawn Michaels, you know that nobody ever gets Pillmanized over the throat. That absolutely doesn't happen. And sure enough, Piper Niven breaks it up before any damage can be done. Tony and Piper are going to end up arguing here, but then they turn their attention slowly onto Kaylee Ray, and they're both going to go after her. Out on the floor, Toni Storm's going to hit a very awkward tope suicida through the bottom and second ropes. She turns her body as she's hitting the move and ends up... The bump looks really, really strange. Niven is going to end up following outside with a somersault plancha off of the apron to the floor onto Kaylee Ray. And Kaylee Ray comes back with a somersault plancha from the top rope to the floor onto both women herself. That was pretty crazy, actually. Back inside, Niven plants Toni with a sit-out powerbomb, and then Kaylee Ray's going to come off the top rope with a senton immediately after Niven plants Toni with that powerbomb. She's going to hit the top rope senton, and then a Michinoku driver connects onto Kaylee Ray from Piper Niven, but that only gets 2. A second one is going to be blocked, and Kaylee Ray ends up getting the gory bomb onto Piper Niven. This actually looked pretty cool. But Toni Storm ends up breaking that pin up. Piper Niven busts out a destroyer on Kaylee Ray. Everybody in wrestling does a destroyer now, I guess. It's become the new super kick in wrestling. Toni ends up executing Storm Zero on Kaylee Ray, but Piper Niven breaks up the pinfall. And then Toni Storm hits Storm Zero on Kaylee Ray, onto the back of Piper Niven. And then she ends up planting Piper Niven with a pedigree. Frog Splash connects. I haven't seen Toni do that, but Kaylee Ray super kicks Toni. And then she's going to end up pinning Piper Niven for the 1, 2, 3 to retain. It's the typical WWE heel steals the pinfall finish. That pin is going to happen at 13 minutes and 25 seconds. There was some good pacing here despite some sloppiness and botches sprinkled throughout. Kaylee Ray looked very solid here, actually. Probably the most solid out of all three in the match. 3 1/4 star. Next up, Jordan Devlin is going to go one-on-one with Tyler Bate. The crowd is absolutely rabid for this highly anticipated matchup. Nice mat work to start here as they're going to trade wrist locks. Devlin is going to block the bang, and then they work a headlock sequence that sees Bate end up connecting with a big monkey flip. Tyler Bate is going to end up military press slamming Devlin and then clotheslines him out to the floor. But Devlin is going to block a dive with a Uranagi, actually, and he hits a springboard moonsault into the ring for 2. Jordan Devlin takes control here, but Bate sends Devlin into the buckle and then follows to the floor with a big dive as Devlin does that big Triple H, takes the corner, and he takes the corner like Triple H, where he takes it on his back but ends up flipping over backwards over the rope. Bate goes for a big cross body block, but Jordan Devlin catches him with double knees right to the midsection. And then Devlin starts working the back for no discernible reason at all. What the hell? Work the midsection, you idiot. You just hit double knees into his guts, and you're going to work the back. That makes a lot of sense. Devlin puts Bate in the Romero special. Shout out to Jushin Thunder Liger there. Both men collide on a double cross body attempt, and we got both men down for a double down here. Tyler Bate ends up hitting the flying European uppercut, and then he follows with a big exploder. Jordan Devlin blocks the running shooting star press, so Tyler Bate just stops short, kicks Devlin in the face to put him back down, and then hits the running SSP for a near fall. Tyler Bate with a big airplane spin. It's an extended one, too, and the fans absolutely eat it up. Tyler Bate ends up hitting a big brain buster on Devlin, but that only gets 2. Tyler Driver 97 is blocked with a Rana by Devlin for 2. Devlin charges, he's elevated up to the apron, and then he rebounds back in with a slingshot cutter. And Devlin's going to try another one out onto the apron, but they end up botching it kind of awkwardly. So Devlin kicks Bate in the face, beats the 10 count back inside of the ring, and Bate barely makes it back in at 9. If this was New Japan, it would have went, 8, 9. You know how they do the dramatic counts? Nice spot there. I like the dramatic build there, though. Devlin with the Kawada kicks here and right to the face, but Tyler Bate's going to block, and we get Slugfest City. These guys are just stiffing and potatoing the bejesus out of each other here, and it's awesome. I'm lapping it up. Capo kick connects by Tyler Bate, but Devlin escapes the Tyler driver again, and Tyler tries for the rebound clothesline, but Devlin recounters that with a C4. Awesome sequence, guys. Devlin goes up top, but he gets crotched, and Bate's going to follow him up. And in a crazy spot, these guys actually switch positions on the top rope. Incredible balance. And Devlin hits a top rope Spanish fly, and he's going to follow the Devlin suplex for 2. The big, strong boy will not die. Kawada kicks again by Devlin. He's going to hit bop and bang on Tyler. Tyler Bate counters the package pile driver, and he tries for the Tyler driver again. He's elevated out to the apron, and he's just going to hit one of the sickest headbutts I've ever seen on Devlin. Big slingshot, corkscrew, tornado DDT connects. Awesome by Tyler Bate there. Tyler driver 97 follows immediately, but Devlin kicks out at 2.99. Bate ends up hitting the twisting corkscrew moonsault. 1, 2, 3. That's all she wrote, guys. Very solid, borderline awesome match. I'm kind of sort of sick of the NXT finish, though, of a wrestler kicking out of the big finisher and then a bigger move immediately follows finishing. That's the second time tonight we've seen that, though. So it wouldn't have bothered me so much if the Eddie Dennis Trent Seven match didn't have almost the identical finish. Phenomenal pacing and structure, though, here. Story-wise, everything was finely executed in this match. Technically, story-wise, timing, pacing, these two brought it here. They went 22 minutes and 40 seconds. We're going to go 4 stars on Jordan Devlin versus Tyler Bate. Next up, it's the NXT UK Tag Team Championship. It's a 4-way ladder match as Gallus is defending the titles against Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews, and the Grizzled Young Veterans and Imperium. We're going to get a 4-way brawl here to start. The Grizzled Young Veterans clear the ring, but Gallus takes them out, and Imperium wants back in, so they take Gallus out. Non-stop action here to start. I like the pacing. We're going to go full circle, though, as Webster and Andrews are back in with double teams, but they end up getting cut off trying to do double dives to the floor, and the Grizzled Young Veterans grab chairs from under the ring and just start wearing everyone out until Gallus ends up cutting them off. Imperium take over here and try to climb the ladder in the ring, but Gallus is going to come back with an even bigger ladder that wipes them all out. Wolfgang is going to end up having a ladder thrown into his face, though, that makes an absolutely sick sound. And then Webster has a ladder drop-kicked into his midsection, and then he's going to end up getting slingshotted into that very same ladder. Imperium tried to hit Andrews with a ladder, but he slides under it on his knees, and he ends up hitting that double backflip Pele kick on both men. James Gibson ends up getting choke slammed onto a ladder from Mark Coffey, and then Gallows hits the slingshot Samoan drop onto Drake onto the ladder. Imperium cuts Gallus off, and we go to the floor. So Andrews and Webster try to sneak inside the ring and climb, but Gallus is going to end up cutting them off. So Andrews just comes off the ladder with a shooting star press right onto Mark Coffey. Andrews ends up getting hit with a Saito suplex onto the ladder, and then Eichner follows with a moonsault onto Andrews as he's laid across that ladder. Imperium climb the ladder in the ring, but the Grizzled Young Veterans cut them off and bring in the Big Kahuna ladder right next to it. And then a third, slightly taller ladder than that initial ladder gets brought in and placed next to the other two. And of course, we're going to get a spot now where everybody's climbing those 3 ladders, and Mark Andrews brings a 4th ladder in, bridges it from the ropes right there into the center ladder, and then Webster brings a 5th ladder in, places it over the top of James Gibson's back, and just climbs over top of him. And then everybody starts taking bumps off of the ladder. Webster takes a bump right over the top to the floor, and then Andrews is hit with Ticket to Ride. So James Drake comes off of the ladder bridge with a 450 splash. Drake himself gets hit with a European bomb from Imperium, though, and they start the climb, but Gallus cuts them off. This is getting really repetitive instead of building like a proper ladder match is supposed to do here. These guys are just doing spots. They're not building to a progressively bigger spot. It's just spots, basically. Everybody tries to climb, they get cut off, spot. It's repetitive. Power slam from Wolfgang connects onto Bartel onto the ramp, and Andrews and Webster counter stereo suplexes with stereo stun dog millionaires. And then Gallus introduces tables into the match now, and they're going to end up bridging them from the apron to the guardrail. Mark Coffey gets laid on the table, and it just breaks right underneath his weight. There's this weird reaction from the crowd, too. If this was the 90s, we would have got you effed up chant. Wolfgang is laid on the other table, and then Andrews and Webster are going to climb the ladder and hit stereo somersault dives onto Wolfgang, putting him through the table. Pretty neat spot there. Things just seem to fall apart, though, as the grizzled young veterans cut off Andrews and Webster back inside. And I just noticed that James Gibson has the absolute worst-fitting trunks I think I've ever seen in all of wrestling here tonight. You check out a photo or something. Maybe you don't want to. It'll churn your stomach. Andrews gets a kendo stick here, though, and enters the ring, but he ends up getting planted with a brain buster. And Bartel climbs for Imperium. Kofi's going to try a German suplex to Bartel off of the ladder, but Fabian Aichner's going to hold the other side of the ladder down to prevent it. And then Wolfgang just spears Aichner right through the ladder that's set up in the corner, and it breaks clean in half. And then Bartel's going to get shoved off the top of the ladder to the floor, where he crashes onto everybody, all the other teammates on the outside of the ring. Gallus climbs and grabs the belts to retain the titles at 23 minutes and 55 seconds. So it was a good match, but it was largely structureless, and it really sorely lacked in the way that they built to their spots. Like I said, it just felt like spot after spot after spot instead of building to a spot, transitioning into it, and actually executing it, and then transitioning into the next spot. There was no progression whatsoever, and the in-between stuff just felt weird. Solid, but it could have been much, much better, especially considering all the talent involved here. We'll go 4 stars. And it's main event time, guys, as the NXT UK Championship is on the line as Walter defends against Joe Coffey here. Joe has Walter on his heels to start as he attacks and sends Walter to the floor, and then follows him with a somersault plancha to the floor from the ring apron. Joe Coffey ends up in the crowd here, but he ends up charging and hitting a big flying shoulder block over the railing and right into Walter, wiping him out. Walter is looking very different here, which I think is the intention. They're trying to show that the unbreakable champion is somewhat vulnerable, and this is his vulnerability here. Tornado DDT from Coffey connects. That only gets 2. They're going to end up fighting over a suplex, which Coffey finally gets it on Walter. Manages to stall just hold Walter upright before slamming him. Coffey makes the mistake of chopping Walter, though, who no-sells and fires up. And then he just stiffly chops Coffey down to his knees. On the floor, more chops from Walter that sound like gunshots or rifle shots cracking out. Coffey back inside, and he tries to fire back, but Walter puts him down and follows with a butt splash for 2. Half crab is applied by Walter, and he transitions into an STF. We're going to get a big open hand chop that just drops Coffey. Walter now with the clubbing strikes to the chest as Coffey's on the outside being leaned back over the top rope. We're going to get more disgusting chops from Walter, but Joe fights back, and we're going to get a Haas off, guys. They're Haasing it off in the center. They end up botching something, though, and Walter just suplexes Coffey, then rides him with a chin lock, which Coffey ends up escaping with a flat back bump. That's that Mick Foley Big Show bump. They're the Vader Cactus Jack bump. The one where he's on his back and he just throws his legs in the air and goes backwards, takes a flat back bump and crushes the guy underneath him. That's what Walter did here. Coffey ends up hitting with a big deadlift bridging German suplex. That's only going to get 2. The ref ends up getting bumped here, and Alexander Wolf is going to interfere, taking out Coffey. So Ilya Dragunov hits the ring to take out Wolf, and as he does so, he accidentally falls right into Coffey's knee, injuring it. Walter's just going to lariat the hell out of Dragunov, and then he just big boots Coffey on the floor and sends him into the ring steps. Walter with the big ring apron powerbomb, and then another big lariat inside as a new ref ends up joining the match, but that only gets 2. Coffey comes back with an avalanche belly-to-belly suplex as we get a double down again. And then Coffey is just going to unload with strikes, but Walter attacks the knee and hits the big top rope flying splash for 2. Coffey fights out of the powerbomb again, and he ends up getting a terrible rolling lariat that actually misses. He follows with another that connects. He goes for a third, though, but that gets blocked, and Walter puts him in a sleeper. Coffey fights out of that, so Walter just sleeper suplexes him. A pair of power bombs connects from Walter, and then he applies that sleeper again, but he's going to transition it right into a crossface for the submission victory at 27 minutes and 40 seconds to retain the championship. This was just way, way, way too long, and I just didn't feel the chemistry here. They could have trimmed maybe 10 minutes off of this thing, and it still would have been a really good match. I don't get what the Joe Coffey push is all about. I don't think he's very good. I'm going to go 3 3/4 stars on this match. Like I said, it was good, but it wasn't the blow-away Haas fight I thought that we would get. I didn't like the story they told with Walter and his vulnerabilities, and I didn't like his vulnerabilities being Joe Coffey either. Joe Coffey is terrible, and he should not be as high on the card as he is in NXT UK. He's pretty botcherific, actually. The Undisputed Era are going to end up showing up right before the show goes off the air to attack Imperium to set up When Worlds Collide a week from, what did they say, Saturday? This coming Saturday? Wow, it's approaching fast. So, all right, guys, what is the bottom line on NXT UK Takeover 2 Blackpool? Well, the only complaint I can even give this show is the length of the matches. Things can certainly be tightened up here, and matches could have some time cut off of them, which would just make everything better, and you can maybe get another tight match in there. I'd rather watch, I don't know, when these matches are really long, unless you have the talent to pull them off, most people kind of tune out, I think. It's not an Okada match when you got Joe Coffey and Walter in there, so it shouldn't be going 27 minutes. I think Tony Schiavone said something about this. If you can't do it in about 15 to 17 minutes, get out of there. I mean, we had 3 matches at nearly 30 minutes apiece here. That's a bit too much, I think. 3 matches at almost 90 minutes themselves. Good show, but not great by any means. It needs tightening up. Regardless, we're going to give it a thumbs up. And we do hope that you guys will give this edition of the JtoZ TV Pro Wrestling Breakdown Podcast a big hearty thumbs up, and make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Let us know if you guys want to see us review some classic wrestling content here on JtoZ TV in the Pro Wrestling Control Center. Then please drop your recommendations for shows right now. AWA, NWA, Classic, WWF, WWF, anything you can get your Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Classic ECW, WCW. I will be taking a look at it all. I want to hear what you guys want to see from the JtoZ TV Pro Wrestling Breakdown. Let JtoZ TV Dad know, and I'll make sure to get it in rotation here, and I'll make sure to break it down for you. Until next time, guys, I will catch you down that aisle and through those ropes. Thanks for watching.